It looks like this is it for the upcoming Chaos Cube game drop. We have the last feature snapshot for this drop, and it's interesting, so let's go ahead and take a look. We've got some brand new behaviors for these Sulfur Cubes, redesigns of the Sulfur Caves and Sulfur Springs, so let's go ahead and dive in. Of course, we're already up here on the surface where you can see this is a Sulfur Spring. Unlike my last crappy snapshot video, this one actually generated naturally, and you can probably tell something a little different. Yes, we have the tuff and granite here on the surface, and the Sulfur Springs actually has the sulfur spikes and all that too, making it look more like a geyser than just a blob of random sulfur on the surface, which it kind of looked like before. Of course, these still behave the same way. They have the potent sulfur, you've seen some geysers, and you can follow them down into the nearest sulfur cave. But they have indeed had an entire complete overhaul. Overhauls also take place as we go into said sulfur caves, because after a nice little bit of torch spam, you can see inside these caves, they look familiar. Familiar, and I don't know if it's a good way or a bad way. Just like how there was granite and tuff on the surface, there used to be granite and tuff all over the inside of this biome. Well, that's been reverted. You can see it's now back to being just the regular sulfur and cinnabar. It seemed like they had made the change of tuff, because do you notice any ores inside this biome? I say as I look right at redstone. Well, they had a lack of ores. Ores cannot spawn inside the sulfur or the cinnabar. That means these sulfur caves are actually not great to find in survival if you just want to go mining. Yes, it has great beautiful block sets, but there is no such thing as ores. This is a very interesting change. A lot of people did hate that granite and tuff inside it. I personally liked it, and I saw what they were trying to go for, but I guess they didn't want to add any new blocks or anything for this cave to help the transition between the two. Because originally it did feel like they were trying to make a big beautiful gradient. I can't wait. When it's closer to this drop actually dropping, I have a community ideas video ready to go with all sorts of community ideas on how this drop could have been made better, including improving the sulfur cave. For now, it seems like this is what we're getting, since they said this is the final feature snapshot. It's interesting. I'm not sure it's the best. Like I said, no ores is kind of a shame, and it could maybe use a little bit more of a gradient, but this is what we have for now for this drop, and it's not too bad, I guess. Also, in general, these entire sulfur cave structures are less likely to be under ocean biomes, and in fact, you can no longer find those sulfur springs on the top of ocean surfaces anymore. It's primarily just a plains kind of feature. They don't want to be under any hills, they don't want to be under any oceans. Pretty interesting. But now let's move on to these bad boys, the Sulfur Cube. This is the slow, bouncy archetype of the Sulfur Cube. If I give it a little bit of a punch, yeah, it's slow, but it is indeed bouncy. You get this when shoving stone inside of a sulfur cube, and supposedly, yeah, it floats. This is an archetype that floats. You shove heavy stone in the guts of this mob, and yet the stone is floating. I'm not sure why it's stone. That just feels so weird to me. This should not be floating on the surface, but here it is, and that's what it does. But the funner one, I think, is the magma one. This is the hot one, and you can see it actually hurts entities on impact. Unlike the TNT one, where it just explodes, this one doesn't actually destroy the sulfur cube, but it does hurt other entities. I can see this definitely be used for a lot of contraptions. Now, I just want to talk about it. Now, that was the primary features of the snapshot, and that was announced to be the final feature snapshot. Of course, we have all the bug fixes and stuff, and the pre-releases, the release candidate, the whole cycle to go through yet. It is not the end of this update, and I'm sure like little tweaks and fixes will be implemented yet to fully fledge out these features, but this is it for the actual features. And that kind of left me wondering, the sulfur cubes, in general, they're great. But one thing I do think of is we have baby sulfur cubes, and do you notice the size of the pixels? You know, in the tiny takeover, just the last drop, they went through and designed every single baby mob. It's so to give it pixel consistency. Except they didn't get every single baby mob. They completely forgot the slimes, the magma cubes, and the sulfur cubes, which was a shame, but now they're touching that type of mob. And in fact, supposedly in the files, I believe it is on Bedrock Edition, they actually have a texture, an unused texture inside the game for baby sulfur cubes. Well, we didn't see that in this snapshot. In fact, I don't think it's in the files in Java Edition at all, but they definitely have something. And it's weird, like I said, since they just went through and almost touched every single mob except for these guys, why don't we have a texture consistent version of the babies of the brand new Sulfur Cubes, and for that matter the Slimes and Magma Cubes? Especially, it's almost something that was teased within the code files. To me, it's just been one of those things that doesn't quite fully make sense. Other than that, this update so far has pretty much been everything we've been promised, and even a little bit more, with those geysers being a great surprise and honestly one of my favorite features of this update. It's been fun, but I suppose it won't be long until we have to start looking at the future. We already had the next mob of Minecraft leak, that being the Blub. But that's for more Minecraft news. And speaking of more Minecraft news, well, I can't wait till later this week, because Jeb has been more active on Blue Sky, talking about phantoms. Ooh, everyone's favorite mob. Yeah, I have a lot more news to cover this week, but decided to just go with the snapshot coverage today, and then we'll talk about Jeb's post later this week. At any rate, there's some interesting stuff going on in the Minecraft universe. You'll have to let me know in the comments below what you think about these features, either as a whole of the update or the quote-unquote final features for this snapshot here. It's been an interesting cycle, and I can't wait to start covering the next drop already. I really hope that there might be something more interesting in the snapshots, but like I said, this was the final feature snapshot. But with that, that is everything for today. I hope you enjoyed, and I can't wait to see you in my news video later this week. And with that, that's all I have. Adios.